And greetings, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand, but not all that much in demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. Todd Erzin is here with me. Aaron McIntyre is here as well. 888-900-3393 is the number here to Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. 888-900-3393. Steve at stevedeace.com is how you can email the program. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. You can also check out our new YouTube page if you want free samples of this show that you can check out yourself and then share with others. Go to youtube.com/Steve Deace. That's youtube.com/Steve Deace. And given the explosive growth we've had of the show here this year, I haven't said this in a while, but I probably need to reset it. I try to respond to as much as I can, but I got to be honest, man. The shorter it is, the more likely I'm going to respond. Okay, and just the volume of feedback I am currently getting. I mean, I appreciate the passion, but some of y'all are sending me the big ats, man, and I ain't got time for it. And I'm sure in there is some brilliance that I needed. All right, and I could then share with others. But when you're getting hundreds of emails now, and you guys, I'm at the point now. If it's more than 3 or 4 paragraphs, I'm often just kind of moving on. So I think Bill O'Reilly used to say this on Fox News back in the day. The pithier, the better, or something along those lines.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So just because I don't want you to waste your time either, because I know it takes some time to construct these long epistles. But the shorter they are, the more likely I'm going to be able to get through them and respond, because we're just, thankfully, getting so much volume of feedback into the show right now.
I think that we just need to put in an unwritten rule that ode to you, if they're so inspired, and you basically implied in that as a Han Solo, I know. And,
yes.
And we're done. And we just move on.
I like that. Jersey Week continues here. I'm wearing the Nolan Ryan 1980 Houston Astros throwback. I know you like this one. All right. So this is like the alternative practice jersey from that era. I still think it could very well be the greatest professional sports uniform, not called the San Diego Powder Blue Chargers of all time.
It's one of the few throwback uniforms I actually like. I mean, I look at the colors. Those don't usually, you wouldn't think those go together, but they just
I got to tell you though, see, I maybe this is our age difference. Give me the Phillies in like that striped burgundy over what they wear now, right? And the road powder blues with that striped burgundy. How sharp was that look?
The Cardinals and the Phillies powder blues are. I think your powder blue thing is a little bit too much for the dude code, but I do swoon
the
at
old
those.
Dale Murphy era Braves wearing those too, right? Your Milwaukee Brewers wearing those were some of the sharpest uniforms around. I even like the old, it looks like I worked the McDonald's drive-through Ray Kroc era San Diego Padres uniforms. I even like those. Wow. All right. Something I just love and of course the We Are Family era with the Pirates, right?
Oh yes.
With the yellow hats and I love all that stuff. So I'd love to see that stuff come back. I think everything kind of looks pretty bland nowadays. So this, in my opinion, one of the greatest pro sports uniforms of all time. But here's what it means, though. If I'm going to come in here glossing Nolan Ryan, I got to bring the heat today, right? I mean, I got to throw some chin music today. So let me start off with this right away. The amount of preening that is currently going on about reopening schools, you need to know what it's about. This is all politics. Teacher unions are bastions of political activism, particularly of the left-wing variety. This is all politics. 26 nations that had some form of lockdown have already sent their kids back to school. Kids in China started going back to school in March. Kids in Wuhan, China have been back in school since May. All right? There's no science to deny doing this. None. It's just, and I mean it, absolutely none. None. It's all politics. But we're sitting here today, and what is it? July 8th is today, right?
Yep. It is, correct.
And I know for a lot of you families, you're sitting there thinking to yourselves, what do I do? Do I just sit here and wait, for them, and then what are the ridiculous guidelines we have to live up to do this as well? Does my kid have to wear a diaper, a loaded diaper on his face? I mean, are we all wearing plastic masks? Let me give you some advice. If you're concerned about that and you're tired of having your family's fate in somebody else's hands, I know these people. My own son went to school here for a couple of years. I know how good the curriculum is. Check out Freedom Project Academy. All right, go to their website right now. freedomforschool.com is their website. freedomforschool.com. And you can get more information on what they do there because it's a virtual school. Your kid will be in a live classroom with other students and a teacher, and it'll be based on Judeo-Christian values, K through 12, fully accredited. Critical thinking is what they specialize in there. All right, so if you're like, I need to know right now, or at least have a plan B. I've at least got to have a plan B, having no clue ultimately where this is going to go with my kid. Go to freedomforschool.com. All right, take control of your family right now. Go to freedomforschool.com. All right, coming up later on today, we're going to say something?
Well, can I because it just was breaking right now, and it speaks to exactly what you're saying. Last night, I umpired a doubleheader with Dowling Catholic, local Catholic high school. It was the first time they were playing since they played last week. I also happened to have them then, after which they had to test some people. Those tests came back negative, but apparently after last night's, a test came back positive. Dowling Catholic High School ranked number 1 in the state right now because they have one positive case. Program-wide shutdown for the remainder of the regular season and the postseason. Players are crushed. This is insane.
This is flat Earth
sitting
stuff.
here, Steve. Should I leave? Are you okay? Because apparently
I'm okay. This is flat Earth stuff. It's absolute. And
thank you.
And keep in mind, we're living in probably the freest state in the country right now, or it's like us in Georgia. We're at least like in the, we might not be Clemson, but we're Alabama or Ohio State here when it comes to, the Freedom Index in America right now. And this is going on in Iowa, where I've gone to the movies like every weekend for the last month.
Yes.
Right? This is going on in Iowa. What's going on in the rest of your states? So at least have a plan B right now. Go to freedomforschool.com. That's freedomforschool.com. All right, coming up here on the program today, our weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz, will be joining us. And then, of course, or in between, then we'll, of course, play our weekly game of buy, sell, or hold, which is always a ton of fun. But before we get there, here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Straight Outta Mogadishu.
As long as our economy and political systems prioritize profit without considering who is profiting, who is being shut out, we will perpetuate this inequality. So we cannot stop at criminal justice system. We must begin the work of dismantling the whole system of oppression wherever we find it.
Ilhan Omar, the former refugee turned congresswoman, has more thoughts on supposed systemic injustice.
When we saw the statue of Columbus come down, there was conversations happening about how other people felt. And nothing was being amplified by the people who took it down, who saw it as a symbol of oppression for themselves.
Learning Somali today, today's phrase is, if it looks like a revolution and swims like a revolution and quacks like a revolution, it's a revolution.
إذا كانت تبدو وكأنها ثورة وتسبح مثل ثورة وترتدي مثل الثورة إنها ثورة.
President Trump says another round of stimulus checks are on the way.
The answer is yes. We're working on it right now with Congress. I want more than other people want to do, but it'll be significant numbers, great for the people of our country.
Trump tweets, in Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and many other countries, schools are open with no problems. The Dems think it would be bad for them politically if U.S. schools open before the November election, but it is important for the children and families. May cut off funding if not open. The Trump administration also brought in Dr. Sally Goza, the president of the American Academy of Pediatricians, yesterday to stump for reopening schools.
The evidence we have so far indicates that children are less likely to have symptoms or severe disease resulting from coronavirus. Children are less likely to become infected, and they are less likely to spread infection. We know, however, that missing school can have serious consequences for child health and well-being.
CNN headline, President Trump forgets recent calamities in his rush to open schools. Bloomberg opinion headline, a lower COVID-19 death rate is nothing to celebrate. The United States has officially withdrawn from the World Health Organization. The Environmental Protection Agency has approved the use of Lysol disinfectant on surfaces to protect against coronavirus. According to the CDC and info compiled by Worldometers, there were 1,523 deaths in the United States coded as COVID on April 6th, 2,574 on May 6th, 717 on June 6th, and 378 on July 6th. Moving on, J.K. Rowling and Noam Chomsky are among two signers of an open letter calling for an end to cancel culture published by Harper's Magazine. One of the signers of that letter, author Jennifer Finney Boylan, later tweeted, quote, "I did not know who else had signed that letter. I thought I was endorsing a well-meaning, if vague, message against internet shaming. I did know Chomsky, Steinem, and Atwood were in, and I thought good company. The consequences are mine to bear. I am so sorry." In Contra Costa, California, a woman recently painted over Black Lives Matter street graffiti in front of the county courthouse. The woman and another man, both residents of Martinez, California, were arrested this week and charged with a hate crime. The city of Seattle reportedly hosted a training session for white employees last month titled Interrupting Internalized Racial Superiority and Whiteness, which was geared, among other things, to help whites underscore and affirm their quote-unquote complicity in racism and to upend their whiteness. That's according to Christopher Rufo, the director of the Discovery Institute's Center on Wealth and Poverty. Cesar Conde, chairman of NBC Universal News Group, says the company will strive to have, quote, 50% of our news organization employees be women and 50% of our total workforce be people of color, end quote. And finally, something good. They're still playing baseball in the small town of Alburnett, Iowa. And if that wasn't enough of a sign of hope for Americana, the Rose family of Alburnett hadn't been able to see one of their sons, a member of the United States Army, since January when he went away for training. Until this happened.
Look down that first base line.
And that's what happened while we were away.
I don't believe they were social distancing.
They were not.
So have you noticed your hair isn't looking as full as it used to? Yeah, losing your hair is no fun, so let's talk about some options. You can go to your doctor for a hair loss treatment prescription, then visit the pharmacy. Try not to go broke just to avoid going bald, or you can try Keeps from the comfort of your own home. You'll get the same doctor-recommended FDA-approved hair loss treatment, but Keeps offers the generic versions for about half the cost. And one more thing you're going to love about Keeps is its convenience, because it's all online. You just answer a few questions, snap a few pics of your hair, and a licensed doctor will review your info and recommend the right hair loss treatment for you, and then it is shipped discreetly to your door. So why make unnecessary trips to the doctor and the drugstore when you can do it all from home? You can get started right now with a special deal. Go to keeps.com/grow. That's keeps.com/grow to get 50% off your first order from Keeps at keeps.com/grow. We are going to discuss this letter from a group of lefties urging the canceling of cancel culture. We're gonna discuss this in the overtime today. Is this a glimmer of hope for sanity? That some form of sanity, regardless of political ideology, can still prevail in America. We'll discuss that in the overtime today. BlazeTV.com/Deace is how you can get access to Blaze TV so you don't miss today's overtime. You get a discounted subscription if you go there. BlazeTV.com/Deace, and that's also where you can go if you're already a subscriber to watch it when we post it later today at BlazeTV.com/Deace. Here's a question that I think Ilhan Omar needs to be asked. If the way you lived in Somalia and the customs of that culture and the belief system of that people was so good, why did you come here? Like, you know why I'm not moving to Yemen? Yemen sucks. All right? Yemen sucks for people that believe like me. If Somalia is so grand, why'd you come here? Do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah, it's not a good one.
It's not a good one, is it? No.
She's a terrorist.
She's yeah. She is a form of a domestic terrorist.
Yes.
I completely agree with that. Yep. Yep. At the very least, she's an insurgent. At the very least, she's an insurgent. And she's in the United States Congress.
Jordan.
Happy Wednesday. Hump day, hump day, hump day.
It's DEACE.
Yes.
By the way.
Yeah. For our friends over at Right Wing Watch, make sure we spell that name right. They're finally doing, now, let me pause for a moment. It was one day. Okay? One day. But the White House finally did yesterday what I have for how long sat here, begged, pleaded, urged, demanded, even privately reached out to people I know that are in or around this White House, begged. Here's why. Let me just give you an anecdotal example of what I mean. Okay? So on one of my sports Twitter accounts, I posted a video that I did yesterday on how, the virus and schedule differences may change how my favorite team, how Michigan's football season looks this fall. And I had to, the amount of certainty. And keep in mind, this is the fan base of the number one rated public university on the planet. On the planet. Nobody does intellectual haughtiness, arrogance. Nobody rocks the Gilded Age outside the Ivy League like Michigan does, man. All right. Even other schools are like, I think they could tone down the smarm a little bit. Okay. We're known for it. You don't have to say anything. I'll own it, Todd. I will own that. We're Michigan fans. I'll own it. I've been around it most of my life. I'm well aware of it. Okay. And part of it is we're better than you. I will admit that too. And then the other part is maybe we take it too far. Maybe that's 10% of it. Right? No?
Just letting you work this out publicly.
All right. Here are the things I saw that were just asserted with certainty. The entire country of China was in an 80-day lockdown. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was not. Whole states, provinces, major cities of China never even went into lockdown.
Communist China.
Never even went into lockdown. Now, in a lot of those cities, the people social distanced themselves when they saw what was going on in Wuhan, on the other side of the country. But all kinds of places in China were not in any form of an official quarantine or lockdown.
That's even more amazing. People in communist China felt they had more autonomy to decide for themselves.
Yes.
How to go about their daily business than people in Texas currently.
Schools began opening in China in late March. They were closed pretty much across the country from the middle of January to the middle of March. About 60 days is when they began to reopen. Schools in Wuhan reopened. From mid-January to mid-March, about 60 days. Early May is when schools in Wuhan, they were the last place to open in China, opened up. You've been able to go to Disney in Shanghai since May the 6th. There was not a draconian, everything doesn't move for 80 days in communist China. There wasn't. Now, they did things to the people of Wuhan and the affected territories that, from a civil liberty standpoint, you can't really do in America, like instant quarantines and things of that nature. You may have heard, when Beijing had its first lockdown is when they had a spike of cases at a marketplace last month. That was the first time that the city of Beijing instituted an actual quarantine lockdown, which they then lifted after they isolated the cases from the market. Something else I was told, again, with certainty from what they'll tell you. I mean, ask them. Michigan fans will tell you. We're the smartest fan base in the country. We'll proudly tell you that. Whether it's true or not, who knows? But we believe it. Something else I was just asserted with. Hey, I wish we could have done what Sweden did. I wish it would have been successful. But it failed. Sweden and Michigan each have about 10 million people for a population. Deaths per 1 million. Sweden, 539. Michigan, 626. What are you talking about? I mean, Sweden's death curve is lower than ours right now. What are you talking about? See, me, Daniel Horowitz, Jordan Schachtel, Julie Kelly over at American Greatness. Give me some other names of the folks who were like on the ground floor of pushing back against this.
Oh, okay. Jesse, Clay Travis.
Jesse Kelly, Clay Travis. Clay's got the biggest platform of any of us, okay? But even when you put us all together, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what we're up against, folks. A drop in the bucket. Now, there is one ring to rule them all from a platform standpoint. There is one platform on planet Earth that allows you at any point in the match, you don't even have to soften your opponent up, right? Like Hulk Hogan doesn't have to get all hulked up, come off the side ropes and do a couple elbows before he goes to the top rope for the finishing move. There's one platform in all of the third rock from the sun that at any moment you can go full Jimmy Superfly Snuka, man. Climb to the top of the steel cage, even if you're just getting your ass kicked in the match. At any point, you can go to the top of the steel cage and drop a finishing move, and it's 1, 2, 3. One platform in the world allows this. And it just so happens to be the one occupied by Donald J. Trump. See, we can assemble all of this information. And we're doing it. I mean, the amount I could just sit on Twitter all day and debunk lies on coronavirus. All day long and like never leave my couch. There's so many. I mean, this Scott Gottlieb guy, dude's either a total hack or evil. I don't know which one well enough. He used to actually work in the FDA or something, right? He's one of the worst. He says stuff all the time that's just flat out untrue. Could just be flat out debunked as a lie. Anthony Fauci's more honest. And I'm serious. This stuff goes on and on and on. All of us pooling our resources together, our combined platforms, we can't defeat this information dominance. We can't. But one person has a platform that can. You gave him the biggest platform in all of the world. He's got a bigger platform than even the Pope has. President Trump does. Imagine if you had a guy, look at Ron DeSantis. Now, I was hard on him last week. Now I'm going to praise him. Because since the holiday, he has come out swinging. And you know what he's doing? He's using the office of governor. Like, they're not putting out press releases. His communication flack's not putting out a tweet. He's holding flipping press conferences, man.
Not about forming a blue ribbon panel.
That's
either.
right. No, he's just shoving the data down the media's throats. Down their throats. You've heard me say for years, on and off the record, working with me, talking to our people when they get elected, that you've heard me use the expression, the power of the letterhead, right?
Yeah.
That while you hold that position of power, that letterhead, Congressman so-and-so, President so-and-so, Senator so-and-so, Governor so-and-so, everything you say and do, they have to cover. They can ignore the likes of me. They can ignore all of people like me. And they can ignore people like me with far more massive platforms. They can ignore Rush Limbaugh, ignore Mark Levin, ignore Glenn Beck, never let him into their jet stream. But when you've got the power of that letterhead, they can't ignore you. You will get coverage the rest of us could never get. Even if we pooled all of our resources together with one singular message, we couldn't cross over with what that letterhead. That's your ghetto pass, man. That lets you in. And Trump's got the biggest one of them all. And there's no close second, man. No close second. He should have been doing this with schools a month ago. But you know what? There's a lot of decisions we do in life. Quit smoking, lose more weight, finally ask that girl out, finally tell that guy yes, right? There's a lot of things in life that we should have done before we did, right?
Yes.
We can't go back and redo all of that, though, can we? I can't change the past, right? But I can do what's right today. I can do it today. Pray that that is not an isolated event. That needs to be a full-bore offensive. And even if they just do it on the schools, because that's the main linchpin of reopening America. There's four of them, really. But to me, that's number one. Because it's a gateway to many others. Even if he just does it on the schools. Because the same data transcends to the other linchpins, like churches. Well, we don't want these young people going to church and asymptomatically infecting the old people, right?
Sure.
Isn't that one of the main arguments against the schools?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to win this argument against the schools, the same thing applies where?
The church.
The church.
Sports
the same. Sports is the same thing.
If we can go to school, then why can't we go to church?
Yes.
If we can go to church and school, why can't we have sports?
Yes. So even if they've decided over there, and I could see that would actually be a smart strategic decision, I should say in English. Instead of trying to win on four fronts, let's pick the biggest one of them all. And just go all in on winning that one, because if you win that one, it unlocks all these other arguments.
Can I ask you, either now, we don't have that much time, or sometime in the future, though, you're going to have to, because that front is important, there is that strain of conservatives out there, and Steve homeschools. Aaron has been homeschooled. I absolutely support homeschools. But there's that crowd that says the schools suck anyways, burn it all. You're missing the point. That's a different argument. And I think you need to speak to those people at some point. Opening up the schools has way more to do with the issues that you're obsessing about at this moment. It simply does.
Not to mention, if you... See, one of the reasons why we support homeschooling and did it, because we wanted to be empowered to make the decisions for our own children, right? You're not closing the schools because you won some ideological argument. You're closing the schools because the same people you're trying to keep your kids from getting infected from, mentally infected, philosophically infected by, they're empowered. They're the ones being empowered here. Parents aren't being... See, if homeschoolers should be in favor of anything, it's parental empowerment. The educrats are the ones getting empowered by keeping the schools closed,
correct,
not the parents. Homeschoolers should be opposed to anything that empowers the educrat system. Anything that says that it has sovereignty over the children and that the parents are not autonomous. Homeschoolers ought to be opposed to anything along those lines.
Thank you.
Because that's the premise of our challenge to the system, right? More in a moment. You guys do me a favor. A couple of you have emailed me a reminder on this. I appreciate. Can you guys remind me to keep to make at Steve Deace at Parler, just part of the normal how you got the feedback rundown, so I don't forget that. All right?
Sure.
Because we're all going to end up over there sooner rather than later anyway. So we might as well go ahead and just start promoting at Steve Deace at Parler, Parler. That's going to be the place everybody that doesn't believe in a hammer and a sickle will end up instead of Twitter here in the not too distant future. At Steve Deace at Parler. I got to remember to start throwing that in there as well. All right, let's get to our weekly game of buy, sell, or hold, brought to you by Home Title Lock. Working from home is driving up the worst form of cybercrime, home title theft. We're doing everything from home, working, banking, video conferences, meal deliveries, shopping. And that has cyber criminals excited. Why? Because even if they can't steal your identity, they get identifying information, and then they go online to where your home's title is kept these days. Use that information to identify as you, and then make it look like you sold your home to them. It's called home title theft. The FBI is warning homeowners about it. And if you want to make sure your home is protected from this, because your bank, your home insurance can't protect you, but for pennies a day, Home Title Lock will. They'll put a virtual barrier around your home's title. And you can go right now to HometitleLock.com, register your address to see if your home has already been targeted. And while you're there, get 30 free days of protection at HometitleLock.com if you use the promo code Steve at HometitleLock.com, promo code Steve. So here's how buy, sell, or hold works. Aaron, with some help from his friends, you in the audience will throw Todd and I's way a series of predictions, prophecies, premises. Todd, you and I will decide, are we buying that? Are we selling it? You may even get a legit reason why we chose the answer we did. Once per episode, you are permitted to hold. But if either one of us chooses to do so for any reason other than that is so lame, it's even beneath our inferior intellects. The Dude Code calls for you to probably, I'm scourged, I think, violently so, in fact, for punking out. Fair?
Yeah, I always keep that in the back of my mind.
I think that's totally legit. Aaron, you may begin.
All right, we've got a lot of sports ones this week, which is probably going to be a welcome reprieve from the usual. Todd Saffel starts us off. He says Patrick Mahomes will break the trend of quarterbacks who fail to reach or win a Super Bowl or Super Bowls after becoming the highest paid quarterback.
All right, before we answer this, I need a point of order. And you are the clarifier here as the Chiefs fan, Aaron. Okay. Mm-hmm. He still has 2 years left on his rookie deal, correct?
I'm going to be pushing 40 by the time this is all said and done.
So he technically won't be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL in 2020, right? He is still going to be on that rookie deal, correct?
I believe. I think that's correct.
Because didn't they structure it that way? Because
it's an extension, not a replacement.
Because the trend in the NFL is if you've got a top 5 paid quarterback, you're not often making the playoffs or making the Super Bowl because of how much of your salary cap they eat up. And so you're seeing a lot of teams with younger quarterbacks where you're on those rookie deals for 4 years and then 5 with the option, where their salary is very cap friendly, and so you can load up your roster with talent around them, right? So I believe that didn't the Chiefs extend this so they could get 2 more cap friendly years with him? So is he technically the highest paid quarterback in 2020?
I do not believe so, but I'm not totally certain on that.
Okay. For the sake of argument, let's say that he is, because that's the premise of and we don't know for sure, all right? Because that's the premise of this. I'm going to sell. And the reason I'm going to sell is he's already had injury issues. I mean, we watched at a time when you could mug receivers. You could do things to them that in some minimum security detention areas you can't do to other inmates. You could do this to wide receivers. And we saw Dan Marino dominate this league year after year after year in that era. Never won a Super Bowl. It is harder to win a Super Bowl than I think people realize. The amount of things that could go wrong. I mean, you know this. I mean, you've had, as a Packer fan, Todd, over the last, 25 years?
Right.
You have had arguably back-to-back, you could make an argument, top 10 all-time quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, back-to-back over the last 25 years, and Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Each of those guys won one of them. One of them. It's just, it's so hard. I mean, look at this league. Robert Griffin III was going to revolutionize the NFL. And, now he's basically a career backup. Lamar Jackson revolutionized the NFL last year. The question will be when these coaches have had all this time to break down his film, Where is he in a couple of years? How many times have we seen this? And I just think, and maybe the odds are only 51-49, but if you know the history of this sport, in my view, the odds are higher that he'll never win another Super Bowl than with a guy taking up 25% of your salary cap, you're gonna win more of them, especially with the injuries and everything else that go along with it. He's got a perfect situation right now. He's got arguably the best play caller in the NFL as his head coach, but how much longer is that going to be the case? Andy Reid coaching the Chiefs another 12 years, do you think?
No.
You know, so I there's just so many outliers, and it's a sport where any play is the end of your career, right? I just think I'm going to say no, and it's not because I don't think he's great and may not end up being an all-time great. It's just the history of this sport says it is damned hard to win one of these, let alone multiple of them.
Yeah, you had me at the Packer argument, but I will buy it for a couple reasons. One, because that allowed for reaching and not just winning, so getting to the Super Bowl again.
Oh, thank you. I missed that part. I may buy that then. I thought it was winning another Super Bowl. Was it just reaching it then?
No, reach or win.
Reach or win. Okay, my bad. I missed that part. So I probably would buy it then, but I still think a lot of the argument I made.
Oh, it's very true.
Stands.
The other reason, though, I get this vibe, and again, Aaron knows a lot more about him personally because he follows him. Aaron Rodgers I'm pretty certain if he was my team's quarterback, I would hate him. I mean, he's just kind of insufferable in a lot of different ways. There is to Pat Mahomes, in as much as I know anything, he seems to have a certain Derek Jeter quality about him that is just not going. He's going to stay on target in his not only professional but in his personal life, and that means a ton in pro sports in general these days, to keep your eye on the ball, the main thing. It seems to me, and I don't want to be wrong about that because I want decent people to root for. I hope he's that guy.
Alrighty. John Endicott says some Republican governors are actively using coronavirus restrictions to increase the odds that Trump loses in November. I actually mentioned this exact same thing to my wife over the weekend.
I could definitely see Doug Ducey in Arizona being in that camp.
There's DeWine, Ohio.
DeWine in Ohio, I could absolutely see being in that camp. The problem DeWine in Ohio has is, I mean, he is in a state where if the Scarlet and Gray aren't playing this fall, then when they find the noose out in the garage where the governor's car is kept, that one's going to be real, man, and not, what they used to open the garage for the last few years. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, Mike DeWine would I know the squealers. That guy would love to do what you're alleging. But Ohio State football is going to prevent that, because if they're not playing football at the Shoe come September, mama's got to die tonight. All right? That's just straight up, man. I mean, Bubba ain't having it. All right? So Ohio State fans, God bless them, will line up to be injected with COVID to get the Columbus and surrounding area to herd immunity now, okay, rather than risk that. But I'm sure Mike DeWine, if he could, would mind, being John Kasich's standard bearer there, succeeder in doing so. I could see Ducey doing that. I don't think that's Greg Abbott in Texas. I just think dude just flaked out. But I love the fact that you're at least thinking this way. So even if I don't know that I could apply your premise to the extent that maybe you're asserting it, I certainly don't want to discourage anyone in our audience from thinking like this, because this is the kind of thinking, critical thinking, that we have lacked within our movement, in our ranks, for many, 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 many years. So I'm going to buy just because I want to encourage this line of thought.
I'm going to sell, but I do also encourage this line of thought. I'm going to sell because I think to the extent that people are doing this, and I agree that they are, it is a secondary motivation. They don't have the guts to do this as a primary motivation. Primarily, they're wetting themselves about their own political fortunes or about the reality of the coronavirus ghost biting them in the middle of the night. And then, so once that is their terra firma, then they'll say, okay, well, I also hate Trump, and I'm going to try to maximize my prejudice in that direction as well. I just don't think it's the primary motivation.
Up next is Non-Hyphenated America. Top 10 rock albums of all time. Number 1, Who's Next? Number 2, Abbey Road. Number 3, Let It Bleed. Number 4, Dark Side of the Moon. Number 5, Led Zeppelin 4. Number 6, Quadrophenia. Number 7, Sgt. Pepper's. Number 8, Astral Weeks. 9, Exile on Main Street. 10, Back in Black.
All right, now leave this up for a second. Let me look at this, okay? Now, I'm a Who guy. Okay?
I'm going to sell because I can't even recognize several of those.
I am a Who guy, man, but you can't rank
Back in Black.
Quadrophenia ahead of Back in Black. And you certainly can't rank it ahead of Sgt. Pepper's. All right, now, I don't think Sgt. Pepper is the best Beatles album. I think Abbey Road is. In fact, I actually like Magical Mystery Tour. A lot of the songs that didn't make the cut for Sgt. Pepper's, I actually like that album better than Sgt. Pepper's. But Sgt. Pepper's inspired almost everything you know today as pop music. Almost all of it. It's like, you know, like there was like a Magna Carta before we had a Declaration of Independence, right? You know what I'm saying? You know, the ancient Greeks had city-states that lived under temporary democracies, right? You know, the Declaration of Independence wasn't the first attempt at human autonomy and government. It just leapt it forward into an era and a stage that it had not yet accomplished. That's what Sgt. Pepper's is. It's the Declaration of Independence of pop music. It took a format and it did a 5,000-year leap with it. So there's no way you can rank Quadrophenia ahead of that. You just can't. Okay? And I mean, I'm fine with Dark Side of the Moon being in the top 5. It's just a phenomenal album. Every track, great. Who's Next has a few great songs. One of them arguably the greatest rock song of all time. But it's not as good as Abbey Road. It's not as good as Back in Black. It's not as good as Led Zeppelin 4. But I like, I think I would have U2's Achtung Baby on my top 10 list. That's another album where every song lands, and a couple of them are legitimately great. But, I think your overall list, I'm not offended by it. Wouldn't be my list, but I don't think that it's like, let me put it this way. Better than Rolling Stone, which I guess is our new Better Than Hillary. So, you know what, man? It's tough to step up and lay down markers on stuff like this, right? It's tough to do that, knowing that at some point, most people are going to think you're wrong, then buy it whole cloth. So I kind of like the stones it takes, man. No pun intended. I kind of like the stones it takes just to kind of roll out there and say, I'm dropping trow on this one. I'm calling my shot. So wouldn't be my list. I think it's got several things that I would do differently, or in my opinion, better. But I will buy because I like the chutzpah of trying it.
You're selling, Todd.
I am selling.
All right. Up next is Putting on a Ritz, saying, we will end up with black-only communities, black-only stores, and a separate black national anthem, all in the name of Black Lives Matter, putting us right back to the segregation days pre-1960s.
Well, I will buy because in the end, progressivism is regressivism. I mean, there's nothing progressive about progressivism. It's taking us back. We're relitigating arguments that the human civilizations, even before we had a canonized Bible, even before we had Christ walking the earth, even before the Jewish people were a light to other nations. These are things human civilizations, like it's a bad idea to put men with women in intimate settings. It's a bad idea, guys, right? I mean,
yes.
Societies that like ate their children knew that one. Literally. Like, apocalypto societies understood, I mean, I guess if I don't want my daughters raped, I probably shouldn't put the guys with them, alone. Right?
Yes.
There's nothing progressive about this. All of it's regressive. All of it is to go back. That's why I call it paganism. That's really what this is. It's a pre-Western civilization. And what's Western civilization? Basically just Judeo-Christian civilization. And we came up with the term Western civilization to make it sound less theocratic and religious, okay? But Western civilization is essentially civilization inspired by a biblical worldview and the Enlightenment and different events in history. This is a pre-Western view of the world. It's a pagan view. That's what all of this is. So it takes us backwards on everything. So buy.
I am buying. Progressivism does not want to solve problems. It wants to use problems.
That's a great
There's
point.
a giant difference.
Yes. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
There it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Kanye West did a series of interviews this morning. Have you guys seen any of these quotes?
I just saw one of these lines. Quote from Kanye West. Planned Parenthoods have been placed inside cities by white supremacists to do the devil's work. Unquote.
Talk to me.
Yep.
Talk to
Now
me.
that's using a bully pulpit right there. That's how many folks. I mean, I have, even in my own city of Des Moines, where I spent years working on cross-racial ministry. How many hands did I shake? How many people did I meet? How many pulpits did I visit? Doesn't come close, even in my own backyard, to what a guy with a pulpit like this dropping one bomb like that does. Right?
And to that end, I saw it. I know you frown upon Rasmussen polling. I saw this morning 22% of black likely voters supportive of Trump. It goes up to 33% when you include highly supportive.
Yeah, I have no idea if that Rasmussen polling is just complete shill polling
I agree,
or not.
but it seemed timely.
Yeah. We'll come back. More buy, sell, or hold next. Back with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin and all of you at 888-900-3393. Steve at stevedeace.com is how you can email us. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. At Steve Deace. I remembered, huh? At Steve Deace on Parler. Parler. I think it's, from what we learned last week, it's very important to spell that correctly, particularly if you have a firewall at work, all right? Parler at Steve Deace on Parler. That's the Twitter soon-to-be substitute for anybody that is to the right of Mao Zedong. We will all end up on Parler here in the not too distant future, I am sure. And then youtube.com/Steve Deace is where you can go to get clips of this show that you can sample yourself and then share with others. If you're looking for free stuff, click subscribe there on our new YouTube channel, youtube.com/Steve Deace. And then finally, if you're a podcast listener, if you haven't done this yet, heck, if you have, do it again. Leave us a 5-star review. We've gotten thousands of those. We could use thousands and thousands of more of them. And not just because the overlords down in Dallas that permit us access to this platform, they like to see that. But frankly, my ego could just use even more boosting. So let's do it for that reason, if no other. Thank you to all of you that have done so already. And we appreciate every single one of those 5-star reviews. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, our weekly prophet of woe and lamentation himself, Daniel Horowitz, will be joining us. Part 2 of Buy, Sell, or Hold, though, is brought to you by Rough Greens VitaSmart. You know why you're buying so many supplements these days? Because all those vitamins, minerals, nutrients, omega oils, antioxidants, prebiotics, probiotics. You know all the stuff that we really need from our food, even more than for it to taste good? That's all been stripped out of a lot of the things we eat today, so it can be mass-produced and mass-consumed cheaply for a long shelf life, and then we have to pay on the back end to put all that stuff back into our lifestyle with supplements. Same thing happens to our pets. That dry dog food your pet loves so much, it's probably been stripped of all those living organisms for all the same reasons. And that's where Rough Greens VitaSmart comes into play. It puts all the good stuff back in. It's just a powder that you sprinkle on top of your dog's food, and apparently it makes your dog's food taste even better because our dog Cap barely chews when we put this on his food. I can hear him And it's like we have a pig for a pet. He inhales this stuff, so it must be good. I'll take his word for it, not mine. If you want to try the 14-day Jumpstart bag today for just $14.95, go to the website, roughgreens.com/blaze. That's RUFF for roughgreens.com/blaze. Aaron, you may fire when ready.
Rev AG is up next. He says the addition of Cam Newton will give the Patriots the AFC East title instead of the Buffalo Bills.
I'm buying.
I will buy as well.
I'm totally buying on it. Yep. You still have, I think you've given Bill Belichick a chip on his shoulder. I think
you do not want to give Bill Belichick
no, you don't.
a chip.
He still has a pretty good defense. They've still got some good skill position talent on that team. And Tom Brady last year was, the 12th rated quarterback in the NFL. Now, he's going to a team that has better offensive skill talent than what he left in New England. He'll be better than that if he can stay healthy, which even at his age, even with his health at his age, is not a guarantee. Okay, but with the talent around him, he'll be better than the 12th best quarterback in the NFL this year. But I bring that up in the New England context because even after sitting out a year, and yeah, he wasn't there the whole offseason, nobody else in New England was either. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like Jarrett Stidham's got command of a playbook here. And with Bill Belichick, you've seen with him a willingness. He's far more pragmatic if you fit yourself into his structure. Randy Moss, Corey Dillon, right? You fit yourself into his structure. I mean, Tom Brady's got a lot of eccentric aspects to him as well. His own training staff and his own, nutrition staff, right? I mean, Belichick, as long as you fit into the overall structure, he treats you like a man. You have your own life. And Bill Belichick's not losing his mind because Cam Newton, is wearing some metrosexual outfit after a game. I've read stuff. This isn't college football. They don't run. This isn't Nick Saban's Alabama. All right? He understands that they're men. These are adults. He gets it. It's just they've got, an overall vision for the franchise, a couple of non-negotiables, and then after that, you kind of get to do your own thing. And he gets away with that because they win. I think Cam's going to go in there with a massive chip on his shoulder. He's got ran out of the franchise that he essentially built. What we've known of the Carolina Panthers for the last 10 years. He got ran out of there for Teddy Bridgewater, man. Really? I think, and he doesn't, and given the way New England plays, what they need is a guy who can make one or two plays to win a game in the fourth quarter or put it away. For Tom Brady, that was one or two throws. With Cam, it could be one or two. It could be mobility. It doesn't have to be Cam in the pocket. I think it's a perfect marriage. And the fact Cam agreed to a 1-year deal, that's him essentially betting on himself. He's coming in there with something to prove. And you got to wonder, too, with the Bills, they just ended one of the longest playoff droughts in the NFL last year. All this hype. Everybody's talking about them. Now, I think it's a perfect situation now for New England and Cam Newton.
I agree. Although I think Cam deserved to get run out of Carolina and replaced by Teddy Bridgewater. He's a flake. He's a petty little whiner. He turns into a 16-year-old boy when things don't go right. But he's an amazing talent. He's still, I think, isn't he just 31?
Yeah, he's not that old.
Okay,
yeah.
He's not that old. He's had some injuries, but he's not going to be allowed to be those things in New England. And Belichick has a chip on his. He always had. There's no new Belichick here.
Right.
He's always has a chip on his shoulder.
This is a non-contrived one, though. And here's the other thing too: is let's say Cam gets in there and can't submit to the meta. Those 2 or 3 non-negotiable rules Bill Belichick has. Belichick, he's got a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
He'll cut his ass in the middle of October
absolutely.
And go 5-11. And it's okay.
Yes.
And everybody's going to say, well, he didn't have a quarterback. He has nothing to lose here. And if Cam doesn't turn out and can't conform, you cut him in the middle of the year like you did Randy Moss. You tank, you get a top 5 draft pick, go get yourself, Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields next year, and you're off again for the next 5 to 10 years in New England. This is a no-lose situation for Bill Belichick. Can't lose.
That's correct.
Naturally, Contrarian says Ghislaine Maxwell will make a deal. She'll give up names of people we know, but not the real power players in government. She'll be granted immunity and walk right back into her life like nothing even happened.
I'm gonna sell because I don't know.
Because Ghislaine Maxwell didn't kill herself.
Yeah, I don't. There's a lot about this that doesn't make sense. I mean, I had a buddy of mine was sending me stuff about her last night. That's actual, not like rumors on a Reddit forum. It's true. Like her dad was like Mossad or British intelligence. I'm sorry, British intelligence. And got, I mean, it just, they've known where this woman has been the whole time. Why'd they just now bring her in? There's way too many things. And I just saw the Epstein documentary. And if you've not watched this yet on Netflix, I would highly recommend it. And there's a moment it's only like 4 episodes. And there's a moment in one of these episodes that took my breath away. And Alan Dershowitz, who of course has been accused and linked to Epstein, not just as his lawyer, but having visited the island and rumors and accusations that he partook of Epstein's offered merchandise while doing so, and which he's vehemently denied. And there's a woman that used to basically be the personal assistant to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And I mean, she's got pictures of her with Prince Andrew and other people, other witnesses have come forward in the documentary to say, hey, I saw this girl when she was 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, topless on the beach with Prince Andrew gyrating, I mean, all the, and apparently, I want to say her name is Ashley something. And she'd made a specific accusation against Alan Dershowitz. And the famed lawyer agrees to come on this documentary and just vehemently denies everything and says, I dare her to go on camera, because I could sue her, right? This is defamation, slander. I dare her to go on camera and make a specific allegation against me. And they cut to the next scene and the woman is on camera making a specific allegation against Alan Dershowitz, saying that he slept with her not once, not twice, not 3, not 4, not 5, but on 6 separate occasions she was trafficked to Alan Dershowitz. And just the dichotomy of that. And this documentary's been out for like a month or 2. And knowing that Alan Dershowitz hasn't filed any kind of action or anything, to like when Justin Bieber got accused of assaulting a woman, what was it, like 10 years ago or something? He slapped her with a $20 million defamation lawsuit. And I hate the fact that I actually know anything about Justin Bieber. I have to admit, I have followed him out of a little curiosity because a few years ago, well, 7 years ago now, I went on a mission trip to Haiti for a week with his father-in-law, Stephen Baldwin. There was only like 5 of us that went. It was me, Stephen Baldwin, Kevin McCullough, the Salem host, and a couple of other people. So this wasn't like, a whole troop of us went on this was a very intimate setting. We were with each other in Haiti for a week. And I remember that Bieber was just beginning to call on Baldwin's daughter when this was going down. And now they're married, And so, and why was I there with Stephen Baldwin? Because he used to be a business partner of mine. So I have been, kind of remotely fascinated by his spiritual journey, and because I know his father-in-law, and I know what his father-in-law is about, having spent a good deal of time with him. So I couldn't tell you what the last hit song he had was titled. I don't know any of that, but just the stuff with him on a human level, I've been interested in. And so when Bieber was accused of this, I mean, he came back hard. This woman went on camera on Netflix and accused Alan Dershowitz of trafficking her a half dozen times. And he hasn't responded with anything that I'm aware of. So I would highly recommend this documentary. And then after you see it, a lot of this just doesn't make any sense to me. And so I'm really uncomfortable making any predictions at all, other than Ghislaine Maxwell didn't kill herself. I'm comfortable making that prediction. I'm comfortable with that one.
Yeah, I'm selling along the same lines. I would have more confidence slaughtering a small animal, pouring its blood in a cup, and rolling the bones in it and telling you the future about just about anything than knowing what's going to happen here.
Right.
Spirit of 1787 says Walter Payton was a better NFL running back than Barry Sanders. The latter may have been a better athlete. Payton was better suited for the NFL.
I'm okay if you have this opinion, and I'm going to sell. It has nothing to do with me being a Lions fan, because I actually believe Emmitt Smith was a better running back than Barry Sanders. But I think this is an entirely subjective exercise. Okay? So, and I think at times, because Barry's style was so unique, there's an idea that he wouldn't fit into more of a conventional offense. The reason Emmitt Smith's number one for me is because I saw Barry Sanders still in the prime of his career just get up and walk away. Why? And because he just didn't like Bobby Ross and the fact that he had to actually be a full-time NFL player and not just come and go as he pleased like he could with Wayne Fontes, the previous coach. Emmitt Smith, I think Barry was a great talent and a great football player, but if I were building a team around a running back, I'd build it around Emmitt Smith, because I just think the intangibles and the other things that I get with him. I mean, one of the most heroic things I've ever seen from an athlete. Last day of the 1993 NFL season, Emmitt Smith out there playing with a separated shoulder at running back against the Giants and moving his body around so he doesn't get hit on that side. Dude, man, that's ultimate warrior stuff to me. But I think this is so subjective, there's no way to really measure it, so I'm going to sell. But I don't disagree with your opinion. I don't think you can feel really strongly about who the greatest running back in the NFL is of all time, because you can come up with 15 different ways to measure that.
Yeah, I'm going to sell for a reason I'll just give you in a second. With these three particular running backs, all of whom I have respect for, in order, I would put them number 3, Emmitt, number 2, Walter, and number 1, Barry. I have all the reasons to have the same amount of
Even though he came into your crib and played a playoff game once where he carried the ball 12 times for -1 yards in a playoff game, you would still put him number 1.
Yeah. Okay. And here's the reason why I dismiss.
Not that I bitterly remember that moment or anything.
I'm looking over your shoulder because that's the screen that the text, the last part. Payton was better suited for NFL running back. The only reason you can think that's true is because Barry Sanders played on the Lions. And I'm surprised Steve, in all his... I've become a religious fanatic about the Lions because of Steve. I've seen things with these eyes I can't unsee. If he was on any other team, they would have won multiple Super Bowls. It's a Lions thing. And Steve, I'm disappointed in you deeply for somehow putting aside all of that Lions spiritual knowledge that you have passed on to me. It was nowhere to be found in your analysis.
See, I look at Barry Sanders. To me, I look at Barry Sanders like a Dr. J or a Dominique Wilkins. Now, Dr. J eventually got an NBA title, but those guys were. But it was late in his career. He was surrounded by Moses Malone, who was in the prime of his career, and a team that had other all-stars on it. Those guys, though, were individual human highlights. What Dominique Wilkins in his prime and Dr. J in his prime did is athletically redefined the sport of basketball, athletically. But they didn't win a lot from a championship perspective. Dr. J actually had teams that could get to the finals, but he'd run into the Celtics a lot in the Eastern Conference and lose. But, their highlight reels are still all-time, the stuff of, all-time measurement. I think similarly, I watched every snap Barry Sanders played his whole career live, every snap. And I think that's the difference. What's the difference between Michael Jordan had that unique athleticism as well. But Michael Jordan had that unique athleticism with the tenacity that an Emmitt Smith brought to the table. And you marry that 0 F's given. That 0 F's given with what transcendent talent, and you end up with an all-time great player. I'm just telling you, Barry Sanders didn't have the 0 Fs given. Barry Sanders was a great player. He got by largely on natural talent, put in no effort whatsoever during the offseason to lead the team, to be a part of the team. The minute the season ended, playoffs, and they went to the playoffs 5 times when he was there. Playoffs or they were out. He was gone 5 minutes later, and you didn't see him again until next July, right?
Yeah, but
Michael Jordan would never have done that. Like, he was, and Emmitt Smith wasn't like that either. And I think that's why we didn't win more when Barry was there.
With the Bulls, you couldn't say we're going to guard him with 4 guys and expect to win. That's what the Packers basically did a high school defense against him when they really needed to. Yeah. 10 in the box.
You're right. That's true.
Sorry, Aaron, I know I interrupted you. I apologize.
Yeah. Aaron Riali says the history books will one day tell of how the new country of BLM America declared itself free and independent of the USA due to the brave midnight Segway ride of one Caesar Romney to cast the deciding vote.
I like what you did there, but I'm going to sell. What you see with this amount of leftism is the worst thing that happens to it is getting its way.
Yep.
It's unsustainable. Okay? No weapon, no scheme of man thwarts the law of God. So the worst thing that can happen to insurgent movements like this is they get hegemony, because they then turn on themselves. They feed on themselves. They overconsume. They overspend. They overdivide. I mean, one of my mentors in this business taught me a saying, God's law, the natural law is often self-enforcing, right? That you just end up, even if you're never caught by what does that mean? Let me give you an example. Even if you're a chronic speeder and you never get a ticket, sooner or later, the odds, because if you're constantly going 15 to 20 miles over the speed limit in a residential area, the odds that sooner or later you're going to run into some old lady who didn't know she could turn right on red, and so she slams on her brakes when the light goes yellow, and you come like a Molly Hatchet, bat out of hell, and you're going to and have an accident. Eventually, the natural law will catch up to you. Eventually, and these sorts of pagan utopias never last, because they ultimately end up just turning on themselves. And the only way they've ever lasted in human history is when they are individual monarchical dictatorships, or in the case of the Ottoman Empire, oligarchies. So one family or a small group of families are able to hold on to power and pass it down. But the idea you can democratize this level of paganism, you can't, because when you let it out of its box, the locusts just are vultures. They just devour everything. So Sal.
Yes, Sal, there's some New York school board video out right now, I think, where they're yelling at each other about which one is more white privilege than the other. I mean, it's pathetic, and that's what Steve is talking about. You
saw this yesterday. We're talking about this in the overtime. They put out this letter, right? Dude, I saw Ted tweeted out yesterday, Ted Cruz. This might be the first time I've ever agreed with Noam Chomsky on everything. Noam Chomsky's like a literal Marxist, guys. Yeah. Literal. Okay? And they come out, we got to stop this cancel culture stuff. 5 minutes after it comes out,
I'm so sorry.
This one broad, I'm sorry I did this. Yeah. I take all the blame. Unbridled human nature cannot help but fulfill Romans 1. It cannot help but do so.
Moving on, Ben Costales says the Major League Baseball will cancel the 2020 season before July 23rd.
I will tell you, Curt Schilling texted me the other day. He is 99% positive they're never playing the game.
I'll buy.
Yep.
I'll buy.
Just think of the worst possible scenario, and usually that's happened this year.
You know what? I should buy. And I'm doing this in a full acknowledgement. Curt Schilling has forgotten more about baseball than I will ever know. Okay? But you've got all these minor league players that would love it, of every Mike Trout on every team. Well, there's only one Mike Trout, but that level of player on every team said it out. They'd love it. And they need the money badly. So I'll buy. It just you may end up with some cockamamie lineups you never anticipated.
Alrighty, let's do rapid fire from here on out. Chuck Gregory with a similar submission. One of the major U.S. sports leagues will not complete their season in 2020.
Let's define major.
So MLS, NBA, NHL, MLB.
I'll buy that, and I'm going to buy that it's the NBA.
Gotcha.
With the amount of virtue signaling and everything goes on in that league, I'll buy that it's the NBA.
Bye.
Justin Rowland says, this shutdown has revealed our culture to be primed and ready to receive a mark confirming our vaccination status, which will be required in order to buy or sell. I think you can guess where I'm going with this.
I buy, and I'm not anti-vaccination, but I can. I'm also anti being dumb. You can see how this is. The Trump administration gave $1.5 billion yesterday to a company that has never brought a product to market. Consider, I have brought as many products to market as a vaccine company that the Trump administration gave $1.5 billion to yesterday. So I will buy.
Yeah, buy, and I'll see you in jail, I guess.
Yep. G. Chum says there will be more Power 5 college basketball programs that cancel their seasons than Power 5 football programs.
Power 5 basketball?
Yeah, there's 6 conferences.
I'll buy, because I think I see where he's going. It's an indoor-outdoor thing, and who's paying? Well, they're both paying bills, but yeah, I'll buy.
But Biden could be president, could get elected president by then, so we can all start being honest about the virus. So I'll sell.
Trey Mays says Steve Deace will run for U.S. Senate in Iowa.
I have just no way. There's
negative
no chance.
integers.
No chance I'm ever running for any kind of a legislative seat. If I ever run for office, it's only going to be where real power is exercised. Only place. Real power. I'm not interested in being on a team of 100 or 435. Nope. 0.
You're selling, Todd.
I am selling.
I got more influence right now than most U.S. senators do. And I've got, a modestly upper middle class successful show. I have more influence in the process than most U.S. senators do now. So why would I take a step down?
Captain Spatula says Robert Downey Jr. reprises his role as Iron Man in the MCU, either in a time travel or multiverse story arc.
Book it. Will happen. It may even be a quick cameo. It may be to close some plot hole, but you have not seen him in that armor for the last time. I will buy.
I will buy, but I think it's going to be in an AI capacity. I think it's somehow he'd already, he just did time travel. I think he's going to have discovered how to somehow preserve himself in some capacity like that.
We'll go to Parler. You can follow me at McIntyre on Parler, at Steve Deace for Steve's Twitter handle, or Parler handle. Sean Feely says the World Health Organization should relocate to Wuhan, China. This will help clear up the communication issues between them.
Bye.
That's great.
Yep.
Bye. That's a great Parler debut. I like it.
Yep. Brandon Dyball says either Trump or Biden gets 40 states. There will be a landslide electoral college election either way.
40 is probably too high either way, but I tend to agree with the other end of this, that somebody's walking out of here with some kind of a mandate. Either Trump turns things around and gets affirmed, or the country says we just got to get rid of this guy and makes a statement the other way. So I do think there will be some kind of definitive statement. I don't think we're going to be up late at night with 3 days of court challenges or Florida recounts. I think we're going to know one way or the other pretty early on election night how this is trending. Buy.
I buy as well.
Next, ML Isina says Mount Rushmore of Deaceisms from the COVID era. Panic porn, Dr. President King, Pope Fauci, etc. Open the country and hell nah.
Have I said all those things that many times?
I like it. I'm selling. I think we can do even better.
Panic porn belongs there. Pope Fauci belongs there. Hell no. That belongs there. I don't know, man. I'm going to buy. I like it. At least 3 of them I think definitely belong there. Buy.
All right. Next is from Corey Tacker, who says HBO Max will remove the Harry Potter movies until they can add a disclaimer addressing J.K. Rowling's transphobia.
You're already seeing, we've only been at this for 5 minutes. You can already see why we're all getting up on Parler here, why we're all getting banned from Twitter. Mm-hmm. Look at the difference in tone of the propositions we're getting on Parler. Right? Sell. But I could see like Daniel Radcliffe taping a statement that then gets distributed, that he asks to be distributed. I could see that.
So Northern Iowa, University of Northern Iowa here in our home state, they had a Harry Potter themed kind of homecoming week planned. That has now been canceled or modified with the announcement that they're doing that because of the author of Harry Potter's transphobic comments.
I'm buying.
Okay, I'm buying it now.
Yeah.
I buy.
Yeah.
All right, I buy.
Last one. Chris Peters says the left is closer than it ever has been to getting one of the things it wants, the end of the NFL, and the NFL is responsible.
I will buy. I don't think it's close, but it's closer.
Yeah.
I mean, the NFL is still it's the biggest entertainment cash cow in America, other than Hollywood itself. So I don't think it's close to the end of the NFL, but I do agree we are closer to it. We might have moved only from here to here, okay? But we're closer than we were before. I totally agree with that. And for the reasons that you indicated, I agree with that too. Yeah, I do.
Bye.
All right, that's it for Buy, Sell, or Hold.
We will come back here and be joined by our weekly prophet of woe and lamentation himself, Daniel Horowitz. We'll get the latest on the virus. Some of you may be wondering, I know there were a couple of landmark Supreme Court decisions today. I've not had a chance to study them. That's why I've not given an opinion. I know that's kind of weird, right? But I tend to want to know what I'm talking about before I start talking. But Daniel has done so already. So we'll get the word from him when we come back here in a moment on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Stay tuned. We're all looking for ways to save money, especially right now. So when's the last time you looked at how much you're spending every month on car insurance or homeowner's insurance? Well, now's the time to check out Gabby and see about getting a lower rate for the exact same coverage you already have, because Gabby takes the pain out of shopping for insurance by giving you an apples-to-apples comparison of your current coverage with 40 of the top insurance programs like Nationwide, Travelers, Progressive, and others. Just link your current insurance account, and in about 2 minutes, you'll be able to see quotes for the exact same coverage you already have. And heck, they may even come back and tell you that you've already got great coverage. Now you know. You got the best the market can provide for you as a customer. Gabby customers save $825 per year on average. So if they can't find you savings, again, they'll let you know. And you can give yourself, like a helmet sticker. Hey, I got the best deal already. It's totally free to check your rate, and there's no obligation. It takes just 2 minutes. Take those 2 minutes right after the show if you want. See how much you can save on your car and homeowner's insurance. Go to Gabby, that's G-A-B-I, G as in George, A, B as in boy, Gabi.com/Deace. Gabby.com/Deace. Again, that's Gabby.com/Deace. Let's go to our weekly prophet of woe and lamentation. Our good friend Daniel Horowitz. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
We're doing all right. Lots to talk about.
There is, and I got to blindside you with this, though, okay? We're going to get into the virus and everything, I promise, but I got to get I just need to see a look on your face when I tell you this, okay? Quote an hour ago from presidential candidate Kanye West. Quote, Planned Parenthoods have been placed inside cities by white supremacists to do the devil's work. Unquote. I just have to get your reaction to that.
I mean, I think like everyone else, broken clock is right twice. But the problem is, after that, 60 seconds later, it continues to be as wrong as it was 60 seconds before that. So, I mean, I think that's what we've seen with him before. He said some good things before, saddled up with Trump, but then he uses that good found will with conservatives to then get conservatives to push jailbreak. So color me a little bit skeptical if I'm not willing to just go and embrace this guy, as desperate as I am for a third-party candidate.
Let's get to the virus and where we are at. So I was tough on Ron DeSantis last week for punking out, frankly, a little bit. This week, post-holiday, dude has come out swinging. All right. I mean, he has fully deployed his bully pulpit with and by using it and doing it himself and not sending a flack out there or just tweeting it out, he is forcing data into the mainstream that, frankly, a lot of the mainstream media would just prefer does not exist. I did the math in Texas last night. 40 times more people in Texas have recovered than died of COVID-19. 40 times more people have recovered than died. 40 times. You look at what's going on in Arizona, and they're counting positive antibodies as positive cases in that state, by the way. And I focused on those three because it's where we're getting all of the panic porn has sort of assembled and feasted its eyes on those three states. So where are we right now with this? The White House seems to, yesterday, and Trump seems to be following up today, but yesterday they finally did what I've been begging them to do publicly and privately for months, because I explained this to the audience, Daniel. We can take all of our platforms, you, me, Jordan, Jesse Kelly, Clay Travis, who probably has a bigger platform right now than any of us do. But even if we combined all of our platforms, we couldn't put a dent into the panic porn industrial complex. But there is one platform to rule them all, where you get to come off the top rope anytime you want. And it's the biggest bully pulpit on planet Earth. And so we need him to take the data that we have been pointing out and champion it, because he can come off the top rope against all of this panic porn. They did it yesterday on schools. He's kind of still doing it today. Maybe they're finally getting the message over there. What do you think?
So, Steve, I just first want to connect the end of what you said to the beginning. When it comes to Ron DeSantis, part of Ron's problem last week and a couple other times where he gave in a little bit on the first round in March or April is you cannot reinvent the wheel as one governor when you're downstream from the national narrative. If every Republican, including the president, is going to echo the Democrat sentiment that cases equals deaths, cases are a problem, all the context we're talking about, the 10, 15 factors and inputs that make the data very illusory and superficial and really make this unremarkable. And frankly, at the point now where it's not even an epidemic, according to CDC's own definition, perception becomes reality. And if people are going to panic over cases, even if they're the asymptomatic and like a cold, then there's not much Ron could do about that. So that's why there is a need for Trump to take the leadership, which really he hasn't been doing. But part of the problem is this. You can't do policy at a tweeting level, okay? You have to, before the tweets, get all of your White House personnel on the same page. That's your close orbit, right? That would be like fighting with yourself. I mean, you got to get your White House personnel on the same page. Then you use that to get the executive branch top officials on the same page. You don't publicly fight with CDC, say, I disagree with CDC. No. CDC is not a fourth branch of government. You are the president, the chief executive officer of the executive branch of government. So you get CDC on the same page as you before you come out. And then you have a united front. And that's really what's missing with the president on every issue. Because then they just sandbag him from the administration. They're off message. And then rinse and repeat. Then the president gets scared and then he backs down. So I think it's good that he's gotten back onto this, but he does need to unify the personnel and messaging quietly before he does so publicly. Now, broadly, where is he coming from? I just wanted to read to your listeners, J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan really has some terrific data analysts. If for nothing else, they need to make money, and they rely on them from an economic standpoint. So I've said very often, the people who are best at this are not scientists and not doctors. They're data people, because this is a matter of analyzing what is happening. The why is a little less important and harder to figure out, and no one has the answer. And because they
can't impose a bias on the data and be good at their jobs, because they have to make decisions based on what they think the data actually says. And if they do it based on what they want it to say, that's how you don't get employed to make those decisions anymore. Right.
Exactly. It's not like academia where they get grants and now you are not allowed to have any studies that show that police actually shoot whites per capita more than blacks. You're not allowed to do that, and they're recanting that because they just say this is not an option. But JP Morgan's not going to say, well, this sort of financial analysis is not an option. Well, they want to do what's right. So anyway, they came out and said, we do not see cases in southern western states resulting in mortality rates similar to those observed in the Northeast during March and April, likely due to a larger percentage of mild and asymptomatic cases, a younger average age, better treatment, and more testing. That really is the bottom line. In other words,
what we've been saying to our audiences for the last couple of weeks since the surge in new cases began.
Yeah.
Right.
Nothing changed other than we have more data to see this. We also have, for example, many cases in Florida. There's now open source articles in the media there talking about how they report every positive and every double and triple positive, but not a lot of the negatives. They get lost in the shuffle. So there's your positivity rate there skyrocketing, and it's completely misleading. But the border is a big issue. It is undeniable. So, for example, you'll see a 300% increase in hospitalizations throughout Texas. And most of that, again, is superficial and illusory because it's just people that weren't in the hospitals were ghost towns. They're never like that. Now they're back up to typical capacity. It's just that 10 to 15% of people anywhere have COVID. 25% of all pregnant women that came in, according to CDC nationally, have COVID. We weren't testing that in April. My wife gave birth in April in Maryland. I wasn't tested. She wasn't tested. Now you're going to be tested. 1/3 of all car accident victims in Miami's top or largest hospital had COVID. So that's mainly what it is. But Steve, what happens when you see a 300% increase at large in Texas, but an 1,100% increase in Hidalgo County, Texas, at the border?
Right.
What happens when you see
that one county in Texas? It's less than 3%. That one border county you just cited, Hidalgo County, it is less than 3% of that state's population, Daniel. It is more than 20% of the entire state's, a state of 30 million people, by the way. It is more than 20% of its entire deaths, despite being less than 3% of its population. So then what is culturally different there that makes it such an outlier? I wonder what that would be.
I wonder what it would be. And look, they are transferring people from the border to the bigger cities like Houston, San Antonio, Phoenix for sure as well. But certainly that's where you're going to see it prominently at the initial intake, Mission, Texas, those hospitals, Brownsville, McAllen, Roma, places like that. And you had days where you had more deaths in Hidalgo County than Dallas County. No one ever heard of Hidalgo. It's 1/3 the size of Dallas County, 1/5 the population density, which is really the factor across the map. If you look at any state, it's the one area with population density that's very prominent that's going to have more deaths, exponentially so. Here's what happens, Steve. I'm not even going to focus on immigration or illegal immigration or the medical tourists, people, green card holders, dual citizens that got sick in Mexico and were very sick and came for treatment. That's open source. That's Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post. That was happening until they stopped reporting on it because we saw the results of it. So they, couldn't mention anything. I'm just going to talk from a travel quarantine perspective. I want your audience to visualize this because a lot of people will say, well, look, Daniel, these are American citizens traveling. You can't shut them off. So we have a mandatory quarantine from state to state. On the highways in Maryland, where I am, we had throughout March and April, you have to quarantine for 14 days if you came from New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut. Now those states are doing it on Texas, California, Arizona, and Florida, and whatever else. I believe to this day, and certainly throughout May, as Mexico became a hotspot, there was never a voluntary quarantine, much less a mandatory, much less a shut off of the border for people traveling back and forth. Every day, you have Americans in these counties because of the cross-border culture. They shop there for cheaper prices. Some work there. Some visit family there every single day. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands. How many people do you think visited New York from Pennsylvania at the beginning of April? Mm-hmm. Right. Everyone knew not to go there.
Right.
Right. You just weren't going to do that. our government wouldn't. You're not allowed to say that. You're not. I mean, there is a greater travel restriction from state to state than across an international border, even as Tamaulipas, that's the state under Texas, became the hotspot. And the two biggest hotspots, if you look at a map of the border, so a lot of the prominent border towns have sister cities. They literally just cross the border. It's the same thing. So you have McAllen and Brownsville are sister cities to Reynosa and Matamoros, respectively. Those are the two biggest hotspots in Tamaulipas state.
Our one of our peers, Phil Kerpen, has been following the limited and shoddy testing, because Mexico, everything they do is shoddy except drug cartels and soccer. Everything else is shoddy. But he's been following their testing in Mexico. They're testing at like a 50% positive rate right now in Mexico. So if you're if you're living on the border of a country that is on the up curve of its initial infection, number one. Number two, doesn't really care about its citizens unless it can turn them into drug mules, has demonstrated that, sadly, right? And then number three, at that same time, there's a lot of cross-border traffic, dual citizenship, green card holders, migrant workers, family members that are going back and forth, as you just noted. Why are we shocked that these are the counties in these three states that are overrepresented compared to the rest of the state's populations statewide? Why are we shocked?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, because again, Steve, as you could tell with the rioting versus going to church, as you could tell with, cops being prosecuted, but you could vandalize, loot, break statues, and that's totally fine. We don't live in a country with equal justice anymore. We live in a racial pyramid. And that's what, I mean, you know what this is. And again, it's stupid because this has nothing to do with Mexico. It's not a rip on them or their people. It's just a reality that every country gets an epidemiological curve. But
you vote for Republican governors like Greg Abbott to save you from that. Instead, what he is saying is, because we don't secure the border, if the law abiding, you shut your businesses down. You do that instead, right? I mean, that's the message, right?
No, exactly. I mean, you cannot travel to your work in the same city. And in Mission, Texas, now there's a curfew at night because of a spread that was brought in because we didn't put a travel restriction on going to work across an international border. And again, here's the thing.
Quickly.
If you're an American citizen living in Mexico, just like we did with the people in non-contiguous countries, you could fly. It's March 21st. We have a problem. You got one shot, in or out. That's what every other country did. That's what the European countries did. They closed their border. We never closed the border. It was a joke. We had the same degree of travel. The one thing we did is we finally turned back illegal immigrants, which we should have always been doing. But that was an immigration issue. And by the way, except if you come to the border and you're dying of COVID, which I understand, we'll bring you in. But then we'll count that as cases and hospitalizations and deaths in our country as well. But as far as the U.S. travel and quarantine, not only did we never shut the border, we never issued a mandatory quarantine. I don't think it's there to this day. Now, the Mexicans are saying you shouldn't come now. But the Americans never said you can't cross over. We're closed. We suspended the Constitution among Americans in America. So certainly we're going to close cross-border travel. You have no right to go back and forth.
The Americans are the second-class citizens now. I got to go, brother. Good to talk to you, as always.
Take care.
All right. God bless. Hey, if you're going to get in the real estate market, it is difficult to do it at any point in time, but especially right now, given the uncertainty of the market, some of the stuff Daniel and I were just talking about. Make sure you go in. If you're going to go in, you go in with an agent that is all in for you, that you can trust to be there all the way to the finish line. Where would you find such a person, right? Because any website you go to any realtor is not going to say, I suck at this. It's not going to say, I'm going to cut and run the minute I don't think I can sell your house in 30 days or less. They're not going to write that down. So you need to put people through a vetting process. Thankfully, somebody's done that for you already. That's what Real Estate Agents I Trust is all about. And the name says it all. You can just go to the website, realestateagentsitrust.com. Everybody that's listed there, all over the country, has been fully vetted from an integrity and a performance standpoint. All right. Realestateagentsitrust.com. That's the name of the website. Realestateagentsitrust.com. That's going to do it for the show today. We're going to stick around and do some overtime for our Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, until tomorrow, John 3:17.